The thing is, they know they can't make it about disability without facing a lawsuit, and so they create a hostile environment and fire a person for a different reason. When I've been a manager, I have seen this happen to an autistic black man. And I was asked recently, and I had a live Q&A a couple weeks ago, how do you champion someone when leadership is out for them? When I accepted the role as project manager, the former manager before me, who was another white woman, told me terrible things about him, and basically that he was incapable, and like she used to have to watch him on Zoom for hours to get him to do his work. So I was scared going in. I was like, oh my god, like, I mean, I'm neurodivergent, and I was still like, that's crazy. And they were all, yeah, we think he lied about his ability and stuff, but we can't get rid of him because it would be a lawsuit. And when I took over, I found he was fine. Like, he was my best employee. We had a great relationship, and I always reported back to my leadership that I had none of these issues and that I thought he was doing a great job. And they kept asking me about him, like waiting to slip up, and it got to the point where the previous project manager wouldn't leave our meetings. And at first that was for like the handoff, right? Which I appreciated and I thanked her for. But then it got to the point where I was like, why aren't you going? Because I had realized by that point, right, that he was fully functional and she was just bullying him. And, you know, me nicely asking her to leave and being like, thank you for your time, I think we're good, wasn't enough. Me talking to my supervisor wasn't enough. Nobody made her go. And, you know, I gradually escalated things, right, of like, you know, the nice conversation with her, the nice conversation with my leadership, the documenting everything. And it did get to the point where I did create our meetings, they were virtual meetings, in a new Zoom with a password protection. And I had to take the heat for that. And I really didn't get too much heat, to be honest, because I had no reason. They brought it up and I was like, look, like, I have a responsibility to take care of the psychological safety of my team. She has a history of bullying my teammates. She has no reason to be there. And we have better team meetings without her. So, and she doesn't get to come. And part of the privilege I had as a white doctor, I'm sure, in that moment was that they let it slide for me. I know they wouldn't have let it slide for him. And that isn't a fun thing to do, and that's a scary thing to do, but those are sometimes the risks that you have to take when you're in a leadership position of taking care of your team, you know, in a respectful way, and not immediately like making enemies and locking people out of meetings, but of building and being like, you know, I did have to get to this point, unfortunately, because of these documented offenses that never got taken care of. So I had to fall on that sword. But it was not until shortly after I left that company that they found some obscure reason, like digging back years to try to find something to get rid of him. And he's doing well now, he's thriving, I still keep in contact, but it was totally unfair and totally unnecessary. So yes, that is absolutely something, and that is why you have to be really careful if you disclose your neurodivergence, because that he disclosed was legal protection for a while, but they can always find something still. So I always advise people don't disclose unless you have the paperwork to back it up. And even then, be very, very careful. And that's why I also advise other leaders and managers to always treat all of your employees like they're neurodivergent, so that people don't have to out themselves, and you just focus on being clear and making time blocks for getting work done without distractions. And talk with your team about people having different communication styles, and nobody owes you a certain facial expression or a certain way of speaking, as long as it's respectful. But they don't owe you a tone inflection, for example, so as to make teams where people don't have to be put in these positions where they have to risk disclosure. Because even if you as a manager are not ableist in that way, your leadership might be. And if they're put in that position, it could be a tough position for everyone involved, including you as well.